My name is mem-bay Feese. I'm 24 years old from Benue State. I'm a student. I went to St. Saviour's Primary School. My childhood was pretty interesting. Went for swimming lessons every day, piano lessons every day, played a lot of sports, traveled a lot. I graduated from Loyola in 2003 and I went on to do my A-levels at Queen Anne's School in Reading. Went on to the University of Bath where I did Economics and International Development, and I did a placement at the Department for Work and Pensions. Then after graduation I came back for my NYC. I did my NYC at Central Bank of Nigeria, then went back to do my Masters last 2010-2011.
Baby she had a mind of her own. She's really been someone who knows what she wants, goes for it.
I want to become a development consultant, so work for like the World Bank, United Nations, one of those.
I'll take you back now to that breaking news from Nigeria, the bombing of the UN building in the capital, Abuja. Let's get an update now from Yvonne Ndege.
When I first got here, I saw people trying to run into the building, and then shortly after I started seeing people dragging people out. I couldn't tell whether they are dead or whether they are alive, but the whole site was bloody.
I was doing my dissertation and I had an appointment with someone at the UN building to conduct an interview for my dissertation, and apparently I went into the building that morning and I was in the reception when the bomb exploded.
Tall, shattered glass and huge hole show the strength of the blast. Witnesses say a car packed with explosives ran through two separate gates, exploding just outside the building's main reception. Damage to the concrete structure is extensive. The number of casualties is high. Ambulances have been bringing victims to nearby hospitals.
The building is not safe.
The UN compound houses about 400 employees and the bulk of its offices in Nigeria.
A little after that, I received a call from my auntie Nanette to say that I should go to the National Hospital where I found baby.
My friend, Mrs. Dogo, who is matron in charge of oncology, went with Mr. Feese because patients' relations were actually not allowed in. The situation was so bad. So I think Mr. Feese, because she went with him, was allowed in. They went to AI, accident and emergency, and they could not trace her. We had gone around all the wards because patients were all over the wards. She wasn't there. So I now decided to go to the theater. Some patients were being operated. So the theater nurses went in to give me a lowdown of those who were being operated, and there was none that tallied with her description.
We didn't know where baby was, from what my father had told me.
Basically, there was no system in the hospital, so you had no idea where anyone was. They just spread everyone who had come into any available bed in the hospital, which meant that victims of the bomb blast were scattered throughout the hospital. So we literally had to go one ward at a time, looking around for mem-bay.
I'd always imagined that if anything ever happened, I would call on God with such intensity, but I found that I was so weak. I just felt so helpless. So at that point I remembered that when Jesus was missing in the temple, that he had asked that his mother Mary had gone back to search for him with his foster father Joseph. So I prayed to her and I asked her to please help us find baby. That if I didn't understand what death was, that today I understood what it was, and I didn't want to lose my sister.
Well, when we first heard from Mem-bay's dad that mem-bay was missing and she was supposed to be in the UN building, as I had been having a conversation with her, I thought it was a bit far-fetched and didn't really think it was believable. But I looked at my phone and the last message I sent her hadn't delivered. So I sent a number of follow-up messages and they also didn't deliver. So naturally we had to assume that something had transpired.
we went, and I just thought, yeah, maybe she was leaving, or she, like, it couldn't be anything serious. Maybe her phone just got lost or something. And when we got to the hospital, I think that's when it sort of hit me what had happened. But there was no time to really think. I mean, we just tried to find her as soon as possible, and it was a nightmare because we couldn't find her for like 2 hours. And everyone who had come through had UN tags or UN like IDs on them, so they knew their names. So we couldn't find her name on any list because she didn't have any identification on her. And yeah, eventually her father said, someone had told him she was in the ICU. But at the time we still didn't know what level of injuries she had, if any, and what state she was in.
So Mr. Feese, Mr. Uncle and I now went in to the intensive care unit, and lo and behold, the first bed on the left with a patient with a massive, with extensive injury. That particular patient was mem-bay.
Upon discovering mem-bay was at the ICU, it was a bit of a nightmare to get any further information as to her status. I guess now in hindsight it's partly understandable considering the large amount of patients they must have had to see.
The most difficult part was not knowing where she was.
By the Saturday, it was clear that National Hospital were not going to be able to cope with her injuries, and we needed to get her out as soon as possible. And I think I just thought it was the logical thing to do. And while everyone was still sort of unclear or maybe panicky as to, I think we just started the process of talking to the doctors in Lagos who were going to talk to the doctors in Switzerland and the doctors in the UK to arrange for the ambulance. And to be honest, for some reason it just seemed like once she left, that would everything would be fine. We didn't, even without us knowing what was wrong or what, we just, in our minds, our aim was to get mem-bay in an air ambulance. And it's strange now because we hear, she wasn't even fit enough to fly. One of her lungs was badly affected. It was actually a very, very dangerous, reckless decision. But, we are here where we are.
As long as I remember, I don't remember much of the first hospital, the London Bridge Hospital, but the Wellington staff were lovely, they were very professional, and they cared for you. They kept checking up on me, even though they knew my mom or my aunt was there constantly with me. And the last hospital, the Gumares Hospital, they were actually lovely too, but most of the staff were Nigerian, so they actually they went out of their way to check up on me and gave me extra stuff. So if I was cold, they gave me extra blankets and they treated me like a daughter.
She came, I got other people to look at her, and one or two people queried why we accept her, the chances of survival was really, really slim, and that's why I was pushing that we get on and do something. I know you were talking, look, let's try and save the limb, and but I just felt doing any of those things, was risking her life, so the important thing was just try and save her and then worry about everything else, but she's been amazing.
Well, that's as far as my guess goes, 'cause no one knows tomorrow. No one knows tomorrow.
I refused in my spirit to say that member will be lost. I agreed in my spirit with Mr. Feese that this child will live